panel is called Beauty, Web or Hammock. It's going to be a conversation around how salons and salon workers operate as safe therapeutic spaces for women and essential sources of safe and respected livelihoods, but within the context of how beauty can be weaponized against women and is complicated in its usage as a tool for self-expression. So our moderator today is Noor Mandiviwalla. The panelists are Arooj Ismail, Angie Marshall, Natasha Lakhani, and Tanzeela Hashwani.
Really honored to moderate this talk amongst so many amazing women. Since you guys have already been introduced, I'd like to begin by giving a little bit of context as to why we chose this topic, why we felt it was important to speak about, and then we'll proceed with a few questions and let the conversation flow. So something that led us to this conversation and to this very panel was the fact that we are, in fact, the 5th largest country in the world, and half of our population, it's relatively evenly distributed in terms of gender and men and women. Looking at one of the biggest industries that employ women in the country, which is in fact the beauty and the salon industry, and where that sits in our economy and the role that it has to play in terms of its social implications as well as its economic implications. So I'd like to ask some of the panelists, Arooj, if you'd like to begin by giving us your opinion on where the salon industry rests in terms of the economy and sharing with us what your thoughts are about it.
Great. So, Assalamu alaikum everyone. तो basically मेरा ताल्लुक लाहौर से है और जो beauty industry है पाकिस्तान में वो सबसे ज़्यादा औरतों को hire करती है मगर as an industry we are not recognized. So what that leads to is the fact that women can be exploited, we can use really bad quality products, and also, you know, we are contributing to the economy, but people don't see the role of salons towards the economy. And I think it's very pertinent for women to kind of lobby together to use this force and recognize it as an industry in Pakistan so that we can formalize it and we can actually contribute within the tax net as well.
Angie, what are your views?
I absolutely agree with Arooj, and hi everyone. My name is Angie Marshall, as Noor has just introduced us all. I feel that ever since I was in my teens, my family has been into this business and I have seen decades of change. It is now that we ourselves call it an industry, but as far as officially it's concerned, we are still not taken seriously. Although we are taxed heavily, it's supposed to be a luxury thing, whereas I feel that now it's a necessity, especially not only for the working women, but also women at home who are homemakers. They also need to beautify themselves. Also for their mental health and physical health, it is very important for them to look after their health, which is also a part of beauty. So my concern is that it should be very, very seriously adapted as a proper industry and recognized as such.
Yes, and moving on from that, even talking about being recognized as an industry on matters such as employment and providing opportunities for women from minority backgrounds. Natasha, would you like to add?
Natasha?
Assalamu alaikum everybody firstly, and I think that, I agree with everything Angie and Arooj said, and on top of that, like you said, Noor, right now, I feel like it's a huge industry. We employ so many women and minorities. That's a very important thing to look at. I think it's one industry that opens their arms to all minorities, actually. It's just accepted that they will be, it's a space where they are accepted. And I feel that it generates a lot of income for the country. I feel like we are major players now. I feel like it's one of the biggest industries in Pakistan. So it's very unfortunate, like they said as well, that it's yet to be recognized as a proper industry, that we are able to have the same kind of rights or a system in place for everybody. I mean, we all make our own systems, I'm sure, and we try to do the best we can, but that would be definitely encouraging. And I think one of the best things that we do, and we should be very proud of, is that it's an industry that doesn't care what religion you come from, what choices you're making personally. You are going to be accepted in the salon, be it as a client or as someone who's working there. So I think that's truly priceless.
Tanzeela, would you like to add anything?
I think everybody have covered mostly, but I think if you see our panel today, and one of us is very experienced in the panel, which is from a community which is like, we can say a minor community, and Angie is there, and it's a very proud thing. Yes, of course, our industry is going through a lot of changes, but I think the staff we are hiring in our salons, they are coming from very humble background. And not only their background, they are not coming from an educational background also. So we are not someone, when we hire them, we judge them that kitni degrees hain aapke paas or kitna kya hai aapke paas. We literally hire them as a humane basis, and we train them, we groom them, and we just like let them grow in their own capacity. One more thing that what we in our industry we are helping out is the trans community, all right? They are being hired in our profession, and they are respected in our profession. Some of them are really recognized name nowadays. So we really help them out like that. So I would really like, we are very open about it, that they are working with us, and we are very proud they are part of our team also. And some of our clients really love them because, they really like get into the core of the client and, relate with them. So yeah.
I think that brings us back to the title of the panel, in fact, a web or a hammock. And I think where this industry functions as a hammock and a method of support is especially in its employment of minorities, particularly, like you said, Tanzeela, with the transgender community. All of you have talked about how there is a lack of seriousness in how this industry is dealt with. Do you feel, and this is my question to all panelists, do you feel that there is a sense of patriarchy perhaps within ministries, within governments, and that is why they perhaps look down upon this industry or not take it seriously, as many of you have said?
I can start.
For sure, there is patriarchy because not only in our industry but generally on the whole, as a community, as a country, I think that women are not treated as an equal at all. And most of our industry, the beauty industry, has female staff or females that are actively running salons or working in salons. But yes, I think it's not only in the beauty industry but also in schools, and look at public transport for that matter. There is more space for the men and there's less space for the women. Although I personally feel that, because that's what the staff, when they come to work, they always say that, bus mein jagah nahi mil rahi thi, bus bahut bhari hui thi, that's why I'm late. So it's at every level that we face this problem of being women or being girls.
Did you ladies feel at any point when you were coming into the field that perhaps your line of work, obviously all of you coming from educated, privileged backgrounds, were you in a position where you felt that perhaps your line of work and your craft was not taken seriously?
For us, like we're within the beauty industry, but we're also within the tech space. So it's interesting because this is the time when all the startups were getting a lot of like money. And we were in the beauty space, and we were also like 3 female co-founders. And what was happening was that despite having a client base of 500,000 women, despite having 500 workers working for us, people were not taking us seriously because of the space that we operate in. Because beauty, it is changing, but there is a stigma attached to beauty being a recreational space for women. आप parlor वाली auntie हैं, आपको इस तरह ट्रीट किया जाता है कि ये आपका शौक़ है, अब अपना शौक़ पूरा कर लो, उसके बाद देखेंगे कि पैसे डालने हैं इसके अंदर कि नहीं डालने. सो आई डेफिनेटली फील फॉर अस patriarchy was a very, very strong hindrance towards our growth.
Natasha, you were about to raise a point as well.
Yes, absolutely. When I started, I remember from my family to friends, they would just giggle or laugh a little bit, saying, "Is this what you want to do? How can you do this as a career? Maybe as a hobby, but not as a career." It's interesting that now a lot of them work with me or work for me, and we all work together now. And I think the narrative is changing for sure, with more women coming into the business that have a lot to say, that are actually proving in economics how well this business can do. So I feel like you have to just keep going at it. And I mean, of course, I feel like be it patriarchy or a difference is definitely there. But I do see a change happening. And I think the way it happens is to keep showing them, be it with our platforms where we get to speak, we get to project our work, just become a major player in your industry. And I feel like people start to take you very seriously. So I feel like it's taken me some time, but I think now everybody does take me, even in my family, seriously. But initially it was like, oh my God, what are you doing? This is a hobby. This is not supposed to be a career.
Fair enough, thank you. Tanzeela?
Yeah, before I had my salon, I used to train salons. So, the mindset was like, this profession is only for the housewife. They are raised their kids already and they have nothing to do. So just husbands give them money and they open up a salon. So this was a huge mindset. But I can see, I worked with the company for 8 years and now I realize that the husband, they left their business and joined and working with their women now. So yes, it's a serious profession. Yes, we don't get that, I would say, outlook like that. But it's a serious profession. We are, I think, one of the profession who employs and give them, chances to people come and join with, if you don't have any qualification or anything like that, still, if you have a talent, you can make yourself something,
In regards to all of you employ women who work in this industry and who come from similar backgrounds, because I can give my own example with Toni and Guy because it's a global brand. The kind of person that would go into the hairdressing field and perhaps be working for me or for in one of your salons would be from a lower socioeconomic class than someone who would want to pursue hairdressing in London, for example. Do you guys want to provide some insight on what particular challenges those women have to go through? Like, I know that there's a huge conception where some women are not even allowed to work once they get married. So would you like to give a little bit of insight perhaps in your salons? What has gone on? What have women struggled with and what have they had to face?
I think there is a lot of domestic abuse. Also, the men are not willing to do anything themselves, as in working and providing for the family. So some of these women, in fact most of these women, they are running their household also, plus they are producing babies, bringing them up, and also facing domestic violence. What happens is that all their salaries normally is taken by the family, the husband or the mother-in-law, or the whole setup, and they are left with nothing. Sometimes they don't even have enough money to get onto a bus and pay the fare. So I normally tell them that the tips that they get from the client, they should keep that separately for their bad times or for whenever they need to have some extra money for healthcare and all that. But that is one of the major problems that most of these girls are facing. I'm sure we all go through that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's very surprising is that most of the women actually who work for me run their homes. Their husbands sit at home. Most of them are unemployed, and they're meant to take care of the house and they're meant to work. And I have a lot of respect for them. I think I haven't met women more hardworking, right?
And also, see what happens is when they get late, because the salon industry works usually in the evenings. We are busy in the evenings. So when these girls get late at work, they are told off that why are you coming late, और ये कौन सा salon है जो इतनी रात तक खुला रहता है, और ये कौन सा तरीका है कि तुम 10 बजे घर पे. Not realizing that even if we end work at 8, You know, by the time they get onto the public transport and they get home, it really gets about an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. I have a girl, my salon is in Defense, and I had this girl coming from some place called Baldia. And I went for her wedding, and believe me, in my own car, I got so tired getting there that I thought it was a never-ending journey in the car. And imagine these poor girls, they come in buses. Sometimes they change 2-3 buses and come. So it takes its toll on them, and the whole day then they are on their feet, and then they have to go home, cook, wash.
It's almost as if there's a level of respect in the household with the male breadwinner. You can respect that he's putting in the hours, he's working a full, maybe even 16-hour day, but there's not that same level of respect for the women.
I think I would disagree. Like in my space, what we kind of saw was that we made ghar par because a lot of like the salon workers, when they got married, they could not work in a salon because of those timings, right? So ghar par operates in a space in which these beauticians go to people's houses based on their own flexibility, right? So if an appointment comes, they accept the appointment, and that's how they kind of go to and take those appointments. And initially there was a lot of like, it's interesting because initially when we started it, we were just approaching the women being like, this is a platform, you can join this platform and your income is going to increase by 400%. But what happened was that there was a lot of pushback from the men in their families being like, ye to inko to itne paise mil jayenge, ye karengi kya? And 6 years into the business, what we've seen is that these men have kind of like joined forces with their wives, and like the wives are employing their husbands, you know, which is fascinating. They're like, ये लो 30,000 तुम मुझे लेकर जाओगे, और अपने बेटे को वो employ कर रही हैं. So they've kind of become like micro enterprises within themselves because of the flexibility. And I think there's a space for everyone. There's a space within the salon industry in itself. There's also a space within the at-home beauty industry for women to thrive and for this to be such a powerful force to empower women.
And another point I wanted to make is, I think a lot of times it's not that, like you said, that men are respected as breadwinners. We have to remember, be it any socio-economic background women come from, that when women become successful and they bring money in, they're threats.
Yeah.
They're not viewed as, it's not about respect. They're obviously, I mean, actually, they realize that, oh my God, these women are standing on their own 2 feet. And I find that that threat and that kind of behavior can happen in any socio-economic background, and even more so in environments where there's not a lot of education and exposure. So I feel that a lot of the disrespect happens from the fact that it's threatening that the woman is successful.
Yeah.
100%. Something else that in the context of this theme that I would like to discuss and ask all of you is that yes, salons do provide this amazing platform and communities for women to thrive in, to become financially empowered in, to create enterprises in, like you said. But at the same time, there's no denying that, especially in South Asia, there are certain beauty expectations or ideals held about women that perhaps the industry is perpetuating. Where is our role in that? How can we help change perceptions, accept women of different body types, different colors, etc., etc.?
So I think that those beauty standards have been born out of the culture. And they are actually so deep-rooted in your homes, your mothers, your khalas, your sisters. You know, it's not the salon environment that's only the encouraging factor. I think if anything, salons and any beauty industry tries to follow the trends that are already existing in society. So I feel like it's a bigger thing to address, right? We have to, and I think as someone who's in the business, I even rebranded my business to Beyond Beauty Natasha because there's a lot to say. So I feel like, you can't escape it. I could shut my salon even then tomorrow. The fact that a lot of these standards are going to still be there. What I can do by having a voice on my platform is to keep constantly showing and reminding people that beauty comes in all shapes and sizes, that we are accepting, that here you go, this is a person on my page. And I try to do that we don't really post a lot of models and all. We try to just work on, show my regular clients. And the thought behind that is, and when a comment comes that, oh my God, I'm looking at skin that looks like mine, I'm not looking at filtered skin. And as I said before to you guys as well, by just being more honest about my own battles as well, showing myself without makeup, showing myself I had my baby, I showed my postpartum body. I feel like by being truer on our platform, showing people that reality exists, that it's not all perfection, I feel like that's how you create change. Otherwise, the standards of beauty are set by, I feel, culture and your home. I feel they come from home.
100%. I do feel though that platforms like yours come from a place of awareness. I don't necessarily think, and this goes back to what we started with in terms of regulation, that there is in fact a large lack of awareness of these kind of factors in the industry at large. An example is whitening injections that are very, very, very awful for somebody's health, that are sold and that are also conducted as services in many unregulated salons like your salon down the road. So I think that's where regulation does come in. Where do you guys see, as industry leaders, I think what we can do is to help and create that awareness and education. What other factors come into play when this is on the table? Where can we help out? What else are we facing here?
So for us, like, the dynamics are so different because we go into clients' homes. We don't at times know what's happening over there. So we had to really like think about a lot of like the pieces which are missing because visually we can't see what's happening. And for that, we had to kind of like set a lot of like standards in place of like what product is going to be used, what is the age of a child who can get a service. Because before we started, like just a year into starting, we got an appointment for a 6-month-old baby के चेहरे की वैक्स करवाना चाह रही थी उसकी माँ. एंड उस वक्त हमें तब अंदाज़ा हुआ था कि ये एक छोटा मसला नहीं है, ये बहुत बड़ा मसला है. क्योंकि और अगर आप इसको हम अपने लेवल पर कंट्रोल नहीं करेंगे तो कौन करेगा. तो ये हमने एक जिम्मेदारी अपने तौर के लिए ली है कि अगर एक बच्ची 14 साल से नीचे है, उसके ऊपर ये प्रोडक्ट इस्तेमाल नहीं हम करेंगे, उसकी फेस पॉलिशिंग नहीं होएगी, उसके ऊपर टूल्स नहीं इस्तेमाल करेंगे. सो देयर इज़ लाइक constant training that we do with our staff to be, and we need to keep on reminding them because we are an income sharing model. Sometimes what happens is that they'll be like 6 साल की बच्ची है, शायद इनको पता नहीं चलेगा तो मैं अपॉइंटमेंट ले ही लेती हूँ. But it's more than that, you know, there is a certain responsibility and all of us are fulfilling that responsibility in different ways.
Just recently there was this lady who brought her maybe a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old daughter, and the girl had very, very frizzy hair. It was very frizzy, very, very curly, and the child was very conscious about her hair. And the mother came to me and she said, is there any way that we can relax her hair? So I was kind of like shocked and surprised, and I told her, I said, you see, it's going to be very easy for me to make some money out of this service, but after 3 months or after 2.5 or 4 months, the new growth is going to come out again. So where do we go from there then? So then I told her, I said, no, the best thing is that we have to learn and live with whatever God has blessed us with. Yes, at the right age, maybe she can have choices. She can color her hair, straighten it, you know, keratin and all those products that are there, but not at that age. And the lady was insisting because the child was getting depressed. Because see, there's a lot of peer pressure also in schools. So I think that it is our responsibility to educate and to give the awareness. So I told her, I said, beta, if you were my daughter, even though I'm running a salon, I would still not do this because it's going to ruin your hair. And I said, by the time you're in your teens, you'll hardly have any hair left on your scalp. So you see, you've got, and I said, your hair is beautiful, you can braid it. So then we showed her 2-3 different styles of how to do her hair. And the child was smiling when she left. So I think, yes, it is a great responsibility on the part of the hairdresser, the beautician, or the beauty industry to educate and to give awareness to not only the ladies but also to the young girls who want to just be like the models or the role models that they see around them.
I think also going a little bit deeper into what you've just said, talking about beauty standards, what is it that make women and especially young impressionable teenage girls want to change their appearance drastically. I mean, there's one thing that's grooming and working with what you already have, which is what you said. But I feel that there are sometimes beauty standards all over the world, not even just in Pakistan, that almost encourage insecurity within, especially young teenage girls. So what do you guys have to say about that?
I think everybody, you can just continue with it. Everybody wants to look fair, everybody wants to look thin and glass skin.
Yeah.
glass.
Yeah, and I think now, unfortunately, social media is a double-edged sword. The technology, I feel, is a double-edged sword. I think there's a lot of good that can come out of it. But unfortunately, now social media has set very unprecedented beauty standards. Of course, like I said, I know we work behind the scenes, so we know what goes on making those videos and pictures. There's like a team of people and then editing, etc. But a child who's looking at that, or a young girl looking at that, doesn't see that. They just see they see a woman, they're like, oh my God, I can never look like that until and unless I do X, Y, Z to my face or body. And unfortunately now that's really rampant. You can't take your children away from it because they're exposed to so much of it. But I really believe at the end of the day, for me personally, my mother never really focused on how we looked when we were younger. And I went through, as we all do, terrible puberty. So I used to be like, oh God, like, you know, and everybody would compare me to my mother, who was a very good-looking woman, still is a very good-looking woman. And I used to be like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Like, I didn't realize anything was wrong with me till people started to tell me something was wrong with me. So every time I would enter somewhere with her, they were like, oh my God, ये तो बिल्कुल अपने बाप पे गई है, ये तो बिल्कुल आपकी तरह ही लगती है. I was like, but what's wrong with me? But I realized the good thing that happened, and what my mother would constantly talk to me about, was that she would never put attention to that. And she would say, you're a kid, enjoy yourself, swim, dance, do what you're doing. Don't focus on what you look like. That's not important. So I feel like the reason why it never broke me is because I had a lot of security in my home. I feel like the kids that get most impressioned by these things and really get broken are when they encounter this at home. So I have encountered mothers coming in with little daughters and saying such harsh things that it breaks my heart. To an 11-year-old, 12-year-old saying, she needs to lose weight, or iske baal dekho, iski skin dekho. It's the people that are closest to you that will make you, either make you or break you. I feel like that they have a lot of power, and that's where I feel the change has to come, the mothers especially, and the fathers.
Also, it's very interesting because we talk about patriarchy and we talk about facing this as an industry, facing this as women at large. However, from the instances that you ladies have shared, it almost seems as if, and I would agree, that there is an internalized patriarchy within women. Yeah. So rarely, it's not really men that are coming at it very directly. It's females against females in that context of perhaps mother-in-law, daughter-in-law kind of context, or as you stated, mother and daughter. How do we come out of that? How can we kind of unlearn the things that we need to?
I think I'm just going to take on this again, but I feel like somebody has to step up and break that pattern. So I feel like mother-in-laws have been daughter-in-laws, saas bhi kabhi bahu thi, it happens. So, she goes through this torture and she's like, the minute I'll have a daughter-in-law, I'm going to grind her just like that. Because it happened to me. Yeah. When it should be that if it happened to me, I don't want to do it to anyone ever again. So for me, I was bullied when I was a teenager. I think we all are to a certain extent. And I remember that it made me never want to bully another person. So you will either become like that or you'll become not like that. So I feel like somebody has to break that cycle. If you're a family, you've always seen that. Someone has to be kinder and let go of it and be like, now I need to change the pattern. Like the conversation has to change, the pattern has to change. But I really agree, and I always say this on my platform, that I don't see men coming after women the way I've always seen women come after women. In the most vicious, way, in a way to pull them down, to hurt them. And it always surprises me that it is always, for me, I'm always like, it's the women attacking the women. Men to bichare come second, they always come bicharas in this situation. Because wo women hi ek dusre ke saath itni vicious ho jati hain. So even in my, sorry. Yeah.
I think Arooj was trying to raise a point and then we can, okay, sure.
Even like, I'm just giving a very funny incident, like even two sisters are coming from the same house, they don't want the same color. Yeah. मेरा ये नहीं करना जो मेरी बहन का किया, और अगर उसका अच्छा आया है तो प्लीज़ ये उसके ऊपर नहीं करना. like sisters are even doing this with each other. So this is like very sad. But you know, sometimes as a, like, I was just like, a lot of time I've seen that the clients bring their young daughters and they said that maine se samjhaya, but now you tell. Because you know, she thinks I'm the like villain, but you, if you just make this point clear to her, maybe she can understand. And then you can just like, of course we need to come down to that kid level and make her understand, yes, sometimes we have successes that they can agree, but sometimes they ended up going to some other salons and getting it done also. But yes, this is happening and this is very sad and we need to change this. We need to change.
And I think it is, Noor, it is changing. Like if you kind of like look at body positivity movements, they are happening, right? You know, we have very strong movements like the Aurat March in which people are now openly talking about it. There are shifts in dynamic.
Okay, she's wearing makeup perhaps to please men or the eyes of men. But on the flip side of that, you have fashion, art, makeup that actually helps people to express themselves and to express their individuality. Sorry, excuse me. So where, because if there's a divide within that movement between women themselves, how can we begin to tackle issues on the outside of that? So how can we maybe work to be more accepting of each other?
I think by understanding that we all should just have the choice. I think choice is the word. Like I should be able to fully cover myself or wear whatever else I decide to wear, or wear makeup or not wear makeup, and have no judgment whatsoever. And it has to come from women first before we expect it to come from men, right? We want to do it. And for me, I've always said, you know, when I get ready for me. And whatever way I want to look, it's for me. And I think we should be able to respect each other's choice. I think that's very important.
And also, like, you know, ये सबसे बड़ा झूठ है when they're like, you dress for men, because men तो lipstick का shade भी नहीं बता सकते, you know, like, आपने lipstick पहनी भी नहीं पहनी, they're like, हाँ, कुछ किया है, नहीं किया,
या अगर आप बालों का color change करा के आएंगे, they'll be like, did you do something?
Whereas women will give you compliments, right? Like you will walk into a room and they'll be like, oh my God, I love your hair, or I love your lipstick shade. So I genuinely feel like I dress up like when women like compliment me, not when आदमी तो कभी नहीं notice ही नहीं करते, तो उनके लिए किस लिए तैयार होना है?
Also, I feel that you dress up for yourself sometimes when you're feeling down or low or you're not feeling well. You just wear a nice shade of lipstick. You have a nice massage or just put on some, you know, under eye cover, and you look into the mirror and you like what you see.
Yes.
And then your eyes send the message to the brain, and the brain is sending the message to your whole, you know, nerves and your system, and your feelings change altogether. So you don't have to dress up for anybody. You just look good for yourself.
In terms of doing it for yourself and making that kind of statement, I would say, and you guys may disagree or agree, I'd want to hear your views, that beauty, whether it is a web or a hammock, it can be quite political. And I think there was an example that I came across the other day where in our neighboring country, in Afghanistan, because of what's happened there, a lot of women have had to shut their salons or work in secret. So the fact that they're actually working is a statement in and of itself, and something testament to their power. Another thing, an example that comes to mind is the women in Iran, where the protests, where they all cut their hair. So beauty can be political. What do you guys have to say about that?
100%. 100%. I think like it's weaponized. And I think the reason why it's weaponized is because it's such a political force. You know, like even if you kind of like look in the Zia era, like how women choose to showcase themselves. You know, they would cover their heads, but they would wear a bold lipstick. And that is a political statement in itself. So I think generally fashion or beauty is 100% political. So.
But also it's been a way to control women, right? Throughout history, if you look at makeup, even the history of makeup, you know, they would say only harlots or the wrong kind of women wear makeup. Good women don't wear makeup. Good women don't get dressed. Good women will tie their hair. Good women will not open their hair. You know, यहाँ कहते हैं जिन चढ़ जाता है जब बाल खोलते हैं. These are all things.
शाम के वक्त बाल नहीं
हाँ, कि बेचारी औरतें बाल ही ना खोलें. तो it's also a power play, right? It's to control women. It is political because you're trying to control a whole species,
yeah.
literally, right? By saying this is wrong and this is not wrong. So I feel like to also make it not political, because how men wear their hair is not political. You know, how they dress is not necessarily political. So I feel like to also kind of rid and be like, okay, this is a woman's choice. So be it Iran or Afghanistan, what's the problem? It's the fact that they are taking away that choice. You can't take away choice from someone. That is the ultimate way to control someone and take away their freedom, that you take away their choice.
Another thing in terms of being political and having that kind of choice, looking at how beauty salons and women in this sector, one thing that I feel is in how we position ourselves and market ourselves, I feel that there is probably no way to conclude this discussion on whether beauty is a web that entangles you or a hammock that can support you. But I do feel that perhaps a conclusion that we can maybe agree on is where industry leaders like yourselves can come together to have these difficult conversations, to reason with these things, and to raise awareness on platforms that you have in your salons amongst the people that you employ. I'm also mindful of time. I believe we have maybe about 10 minutes, so I would like to, if it's okay with you ladies, open the floor to some questions. Do we have any questions in the audience?
Hi, this is a fantastic panel and you've said some amazing things, so thank you for all your insights. I want to ask, I think it's Arooj, a question in particular, and that is, you said you do home services. Now, tell me something, when your teams go into people's houses, especially when they're women, how do you protect them? Because you're not on ground. How do you see or how do you give them comfort in going to someone's home to do the services?
Great. So that's an excellent question. When we started it, like our biggest fear was never about the client feeling safe. It was always about the worker feeling safe. And for that, we kind of like developed a tech system which is basically connected to the NADRA system. So NADRA, where we get the CNICs. And what happens is that you need to kind of first apply for a membership. And when you apply for your membership, you give your CNIC number to us. We verify the CNIC number. We call someone. If the phone is answered by a woman, only then we send the worker to a client's home. So it's not as if like someone can just book a service and we will send the worker over there. On top of that, our app has an emergency button, and we have a whole security team. So God forbid, it's been 6 years and touch wood, nothing has happened so far. But there's a whole team that basically, if something goes wrong, they would press the button and the team gets dispatched over there. So we've kind of like, as much as we can, we've kind of like created like some form of mechanisms of security, because that is one of the biggest fears for us, that, you know, we are taking the responsibility for these women to go into clients' houses. So we have to kind of make sure that it's covered on every aspect.
Yeah, I was just wondering, considering how trans people are a hot topic these days, and we were talking politics a bit earlier, I wonder how you navigate that in your services in terms of when trans people want access to beauty services, how you navigate whether it's providing access and the general environment that is in your salons.
All right. She's asking that, okay, fine, employment is one of the elements, but what about they come for the service, if I'm not wrong? This is your question. Yes, of course we are open for that. Why not? I mean, you know, a lot of like, I think at least 4 of them, they came for their keratin treatment and we didn't judge them for anything. So they come and they've been respected as a normal client. They got their service done, and
in fact, I have a couple of trans who come to the salon, get their services, makeup, even their hair done and all that, nails especially, acrylic nails and nail art. So yes, of course they are welcome.
Something I'd like to share actually is, because we're part of a wider franchise group globally, Tony and Guy is slowly making a shift because we're also co-salons, so we offer services in the past to men and women. Now what is being done is the pricing is becoming more gender inclusive, all across the spectrum. So there's no longer male haircut, female haircut. We have not yet implemented this in Pakistan. It's a project that is ongoing and that has begun with the UK, where pricing is now based on hair length rather than gender. So the response to that from the UK office has been very, very interesting, because when you call in for a haircut, it's like, okay, male haircut, female haircut. It's a little bit intimidating for somebody who doesn't belong to that gender spectrum, right? So just in itself, creating that kind of accessibility by saying, okay, what's your hair length, rather than asking for gender, that has led to a huge response from the trans community. So I've been a part of that as well, and I've seen the team working towards it, so I've seen it work. So I think that's something that's really cool that's been incorporated with the pricing. I hope that answers your question.
Also, I want to add one thing. As an employment aspect, when they come, we didn't bifurcate their salaries also. So we give them the standard salary according to their experience and everything. So we always, like, even myself is now very comfortable with this community, to be honest, because they are very okay, and they work for... Yes, very creative, and they enjoy and they can be themselves, and sometimes we don't have a client over, they can have a nice dance with us, so we really have to have them in our salon.
The only thing I'd like to add here is that sometimes what happens is due to cultural or religious norms, some clients are not comfortable. So we have to respect everybody's views, and in my salon at least, I have a special space for my clients who are following the hijab or covering themselves and they are not comfortable with boys as stylist or makeup artist, or with trans as well. So yes, you have to cater to everybody, and that's why we are there in the salon. So if a client comes and says that मैं comfortable नहीं हूँ कि कोई लड़का जब मैं अपना हिजाब उतारूँ तो कोई लड़का वहाँ हो, so we don't have to judge them for that, and we don't have to say कि ये तो बड़ा मसला है. No, we respect her for what she is following religiously. So we have a separate section for that, or like you can always have a little bit of a partition where you can just put the partition so that when she takes off her hijab,
Angie, sorry to cut you off, we're just with time.
Yeah.
But thank you for the questions, and it's been lovely speaking to all of you ladies. I think this is not a topic that one can conclude in just 45 minutes of a discussion, but I do feel that if we can continue to have these conversations, particularly within our own salon spaces, educate clients, provide them with that kind of choice, would be really, really amazing. So thank you for sharing all of your insights, and thank you all for listening. I believe we have to wrap up now, so thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, Noor, for moderating this session for us.
Thank you, Noor. Next time have it for at least 3 hours.